Hello there and welcome to this week's What's for Dinner video. I am super excited about this week's video because I made some pretty delicious meals and I tried a few new dinners this week that I have actually never tried before. As always, I will have the links to each of the meals down below in my description box just in case any of you guys want to make them yourselves. But this video is also awesome because it's in collaboration with my friend named Jess from Jess and the Boys. I'm sure all you guys already know her, but if you don't know her yet, she makes What's for Dinner videos as well. I've also been watching her What's for Dinner videos for about a year now, I think, and she's always creating new things with her husband, and her boys are just so sweet. So I will leave her link in my description box below if you want to go check her channel out after my What's for Dinner video today. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So now let's get on with the video. To kick this week off, I decided to do my meatless meal right in the beginning of the week. So I did some spinach stuffed shells and these were super delicious. I have the exact recipe and measurements down in my description box below if you are going to make this yourself. But essentially, to start this recipe out, I have 2 cloves of garlic and 1 whole onion, and I'm just dicing it into small pieces just like that. To my saucepan on medium heat, I'm adding about a teaspoon of olive oil along with my chopped onion that I had just chopped up, and I'm just going to let that cook down together for about 3 minutes or until those onions get translucent, and then I'm going to go ahead and press those 2 cloves of garlic in there with those onions, and I'm just going to stir it together for a couple of minutes. Then once the garlic is translucent and so is the onion, that's when you know you're ready to add your spinach. I added about 8 cups of fresh spinach. The recipe called for 4 cups, but I did double this recipe just to let you guys know. So the original recipe was pretty much for an 8x8 baking dish, but we did want leftovers for lunch the next day. So I went ahead and I doubled it. So if you do make this yourself and you see the recipe that is in my bio looking a little bit different, that is why. Now into a large mixing bowl, I'm just adding that sauteed spinach that we just sauteed, and it definitely is not 8 cups anymore because spinach just wilts down so nicely and so little. And then I'm just adding my Parmesan cheese along with my jar of ricotta cheese. This is 15 ounces. Now is when you're going to add your 2 cups of fresh mozzarella cheese along with 1 cracked egg. For the seasonings, I added about a teaspoon of pepper along with a teaspoon of salt. While I was sauteing the spinach on the stove, I just cooked up about 18 jumbo shells on the stove. So now we're going to be assembling the stuffed shells. I'm just using this Classico organic marinara sauce. You could easily use any type of marinara sauce that you prefer, but I'm just spreading it out. I used about a half a cup to a cup on the bottom right there for that bottom layer. And then to stuff my shells, I always use a cookie scoop. That is my little secret to getting these shells perfect and not making a huge, massive mess. I have tried to stuff shells with a spoon before, but it just doesn't work out as great. So I highly suggest using a cookie scoop if you're ever going to stuff some shells. With the remainder of that marinara sauce, I just poured it into this little measuring cup right here. It just made it a lot easier for me to pour onto those shells evenly, just so that all those little shell guys got some marinara sauce on them. Before I plopped it in the oven, I just added some more Parmesan cheese and a little bit of mozzarella on top because who doesn't love extra cheese? Here it is out of the oven, absolutely delicious and super bubbly and cheesy. We couldn't even tell this was a meatless meal. It definitely did not lack in flavor. It was so good. But if you wanted to add some meat to it, you could easily add some ground sausage or some shredded chicken, and that would be super delicious as well. For this nice dinner, I was just keeping it super simple and real with you guys, so I just have 2 chicken breasts that I boiled up and I shredded, and I just placed in that little flour bowl right there. And then I'm just adding this little bag of frozen corn. You could add a can of drained corn as well if that's what you have. And then next I'm adding this 15-ounce can of mixed chili beans. So the original recipe to this called for just like a can of drained pinto beans, but we were all out of pinto beans and all I had on hand were chili beans, so I just thought that had to do. Next, I'm just adding this can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. The original recipe called for 2 cups of salsa. I did not have any salsa on hand. We had to go to the grocery store the next day. We were seriously out of everything. So to substitute that salsa, I just added 2 cans of diced tomatoes with green chilies, and that worked out perfectly fine. Like I said before, I will have the exact measurements to this recipe down below in my description box if you want the exact spice measurements, but I'm just adding in some onion powder along with some ground cumin for the spices, and then a little bit of some salt and pepper. Lastly, you're just gonna mix it up. Now I just pulled out my big 9x13 baking dish and I just placed that mixture in there, but first I just sprayed it with a little bit of olive oil spray so that nothing stuck to the edges or the bottom of the pan. You guys already know me and you know I'm gonna add cheese on top, so I'm just adding about 1/2 cup of some sharp cheddar cheese on top of that casserole, and then I'm gonna plop it in the oven. To go along with that chicken casserole, I'm just going to make some guacamole, and I don't think I've ever showed you guys how I make my guacamole, so I thought I would just show you guys because everybody makes guacamole differently. But anyways, I just have a large avocado, and then I'm putting about 1/2 tablespoon of lemon juice in there to go along with that avocado. And then I'm going to squeeze 2 cloves of garlic right on top of that avocado. And then I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt, maybe a little bit less than a teaspoon actually, maybe like 1/2 teaspoon of salt to go along with that avocado as well. A lot of times when I'm making some guacamole and I have some cherry tomatoes on hand, I just chop up some cherry tomatoes and then add it into my guacamole. It just gives it some extra crunch and it's super delicious. But anyways, here's my casserole out of the oven. It was so yummy and flavorful. This meal is also super budget friendly. So if that's what you're looking for this week, this meal would be perfect. I just served it alongside of that guacamole. And then for the leftovers the next day, I just put that delicious casserole into a tortilla and kind of made a burrito out of it for lunch. So for this night's dinner, it was actually my first time ever making this recipe, so I was actually super excited about it. So I just have 1 large chicken breast here that I sliced in half to make it kind of thin, and then I'm just seasoning it with some salt and pepper as well as some paprika. If your family eats more than 1 chicken breast, that's totally fine. You could do however many chicken breasts you need to with this recipe. But I will always have my recipes linked down below in my description box, or something similar to the recipe, just so if you guys want to make any of these yourself, you definitely can. So to my saucepan, I'm just adding about a teaspoon of olive oil to some medium-high heat, and then I'm going to let that heat up, and then once it's all heated up, I'm just going to add my chicken breasts in there. I just cooked these chicken breasts for about 5 minutes on each side until they got a beautiful golden brown and cooked through. To start on what is going to be the sauce of this dish, I just have one smaller sized onion right here and 2 cloves of garlic. You definitely don't need to add the onion into this recipe if you do not prefer onion. Once your chicken is totally cooked through, just like that, you're just going to take it out and put it on a separate plate, and then cover it with some aluminum foil just to keep it warm and to make sure it doesn't get cold while you start working on your orzo and your sauce. So to that same skillet right there, I'm just adding another teaspoon of some olive oil, and then I'm dumping that onion right in there just like that. And I'm just going to stir it together until that onion gets translucent. And then once it's translucent, I'm going to add my 2 cloves of garlic and then stir it again for another couple of minutes. At this point, you're going to add your 2 cups of orzo and then kind of just stir it together until it gets crisper and brown. I did it for about 20 seconds on medium-high heat. And then you're either going to add your chicken stock or water. I chose to use water for this recipe, and in my opinion, it came out perfect. And then next, you're going to add your half and half. I just stirred it all together until everything got well combined, and I made sure that nothing was stuck to the bottom, such as like onions or any more of that orzo. And then I kind of let it come up to a boil, and then once it was up to a boil just like that, I turned it down to low, and then I put the lid on and I let it simmer for about 20 minutes. The original recipe said to only let it simmer for about 10 minutes, and I didn't think that was enough time. So here it is after the 20 minutes. I just put a cup and a half of some fresh Parmesan cheese on top of that orzo, and then I just stirred it together just like that, and then I added a little bit more salt and pepper just to taste. I added the chicken breasts back on top just like that, and then I sprinkled a little bit of parsley on just for some added color, and then voila, that meal is done. Here's my plate all plated up, and wow, this meal was so good. That orzo was super creamy and delicious. It kind of reminded us of like an Alfredo. It was so good, and we just served it alongside of some broccoli. You guys definitely need to try this recipe out. It was 10 out of 10. For our Crockpot meal this week, I just have 2 super large chicken breasts, and I kind of cut them in half just so that they were a little bit thinner and they would cook faster, because of course, you guys know me, I was starting a Crockpot late. So I just added about 1/4 cup of Italian dressing on top of those chicken breasts, and then I added this Kraft original barbecue sauce. I added about 1/2 cup of that right on top of that chicken. The last thing I did was add about 2 tablespoons of some Worcestershire sauce, and that made this super flavorful and delicious. Then I just plopped the lid on top and I let it cook on high for about 5 hours. So to go alongside of that barbecue chicken, while it was cooking, I decided to make some potato salad. So I peeled and cut up some russet potatoes. I used about 10 smaller russet potatoes for this potato salad, and then I put them in a pot of some boiling water and let it get fork tender. So just to let you guys know, this is my mom's recipe for potato salad, and I kid you not, this is the best potato salad I have ever had in my entire life. And I'm not just saying that. This potato salad is so, so delicious. I will have the recipe instructions down below in my description box just because I know all you guys are going to want to make it. I let the potatoes sit in the strainer for about 10 minutes, and then after the 10 minutes, I just plopped them into my large mixing bowl just like that, and then I added about half a cup of this Italian dressing right on top of those potatoes, and then I kind of just stirred those potatoes in with the Italian dressing, and then I put the lid on and placed it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours just because you want those potatoes to marinate in the Italian dressing and get all up in that yummy flavorfulness. After the potatoes have marinated for a couple hours, I'm just going to start on cutting up my vegetables. So I have 2 stalks of celery right here. I have a smaller size brown onion, and then I have about 5 little baby dill pickles. You're just going to want to cut everything all up together just like that. The last thing you're going to be chopping up is 3 hard-boiled eggs. You could boil these eggs however you choose to. I just boiled them in my Instant Pot just because that is the fastest way possible for me. So you're just going to chop 2 of them up into small pieces, and then for the third one, you're just going to try to make it look pretty because that is for the garnish on top. Here are the potatoes ready for all the yummy ingredients to go inside of them. This part is super simple. You're just going to toss those pickles, onions, and celery right in there to go along with the potatoes. Once you have stirred those ingredients together and got them incorporated, you're going to add however much salt and pepper your family prefers. I just added a little bit of both. Now you're going to add about 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard. Now I'm adding about a half a cup of mayo along with about 1/4 cup of some sour cream. I just mixed it all together, and then I added about a tablespoon of some of that pickle juice for some extra flavor and a little bit extra saltiness. Right now is when I'm adding 2 of the 3 hard-boiled eggs that I chopped up earlier, and then I just added them in, stirred it all together, and then I added the 3rd hard-boiled egg on top, and then I plopped it into the refrigerator until the barbecue chicken was totally cooked through, so for about 3 more hours. Here is the chicken once it is totally cooked through and done. I'm just shredding it with my little shredder gadget right here and just breaking up all the big chicken pieces. Here's my plate all plated up. I just served that chicken alongside of a Sister Schubert's dinner roll. If you've never tried the Sister Schubert's dinner rolls before, I highly suggest them. They are super delicious and they come in a bag like this. That potato salad, seriously, the best potato salad ever. Highly suggest it. I loved this meal so, so much. For this night's dinner, we're just doing some grilled salmon with some leftovers. I hate for leftovers to go to waste, so I tried to figure out how to incorporate them to the best of my ability, so I figured out how to on this night. So I just have about 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm adding about a half a tablespoon of some garlic salt with about 2 tablespoons of this delicious Italian seasoning to go along in that olive oil. And then I'm just going to mix those seasonings and oil together just like that and let it get well combined. I just brushed some of that yummy seasoning olive oil mixture on top of each of those salmon fillets, and then I made my husband go outside and grill these out for me. I love the way that grilled salmon tastes much better than cooked in the oven. Here's my plate all plated up. I just served that filet alongside of some leftover orzo that we had earlier in the week. Just like that, I just warmed that orzo up in the microwave. And then we also had some extra potato salad that I served it alongside of as well. And that was our super simple, easy leftover meal for that night. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe below the video just so that you guys could join our little cooking group over here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day today and a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.